free stuff. So I get an email today from a restaurant that I like to frequent, and it's like, "Happy birthday, Adam. Enjoy your free cookie." And I'm like, "A free cookie? Hell yeah." I was really excited about that free cookie. I'm going to go get it after the show.
Are you seriously going to go get
I'm not
just
going
that
out
one cookie?
I'm not going out of my way.
Yeah, you ride past, huh? So you're just going to make that stop
Yeah.
for that one cookie. Okay, what are you going to say when you walk in? "Hi, I'm Adam, and it's my birthday, so give me my cookie." Or will they already have it waiting for you, like in a little bag? You know what I'm talking about, right, Willie? In a little baggie on the side with his name on it, like at the pickup area.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure, but I was just excited about a free cookie. Yesterday, I went to the grocery store and I got free ice cream.
Wow.
A free pint of ice cream. I was really excited about that. So I'm
That
really
was a pre-birthday gift?
Yeah, I'm really excited about all the free things. That's what I'm most excited about right now.
Oh, wow. Well,
I mean, who is not excited about getting free things?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
If it's free and for me, I'll take it. So happy birthday, Adam.
Thank you.
Happy 25th birthday or 26th birthday.
I wish.
He's 29, right?
I thought so.
29 plus 7.
Yeah. So, but happy birthday. Also, it's my daughter's birthday.
Of
That's
course.
why you're such a cool dude.
Oh, thank you.
Because you have this. Your birthday is the same day as my daughter's birthday. So happy 26th birthday, Bailey Mason. Such a beautiful daughter. It's such a blessing to have you in my life. You chose me as your parent, and I couldn't have thought of a better, gift than having you in 1999. So happy birthday, Bailey. Again, she's 26. So, that's why you're so cool, Adam.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It makes so much sense now.
Exactly.
So one thing we were all treated to over the weekend was some excellent basketball.
Yes.
Excellent basketball in the NCAA tournament. 7 SEC teams land in the Sweet 16, which is, of course, a tournament record. The previous record was 6th by the ACC in 2016. So this is where I want to start today, gentlemen. Of those 7 teams, Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, Arkansas, Ole Miss. Who am I missing off the top of my head? Or did I name 7?
Was that 7?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Either way, 7 teams made the 7 SEC teams made the Sweet 16. Which of those 7 teams most impressed you this weekend? And I will start.
Mm-hmm.
Although Arkansas taking down St. John's in the round of 32 was quite impressive. And if I'm not mistaken, Arkansas, the only double-digit seed to advance to the Sweet 16. I thought what Tennessee did this weekend was most impressive, particularly against UCLA. I thought that game against UCLA showed the blueprint for how the Volunteers can win the national title. They were excellent defensively. Chaz Lanier continues scoring. By the way, the magic number I learned for Chaz Lanier is 18 points. The Vols are 21-0 this season when Lanier scores at least 18 points. So Lanier kept scoring. Their defense was on lock. UCLA, I thought it was going to be an intriguing matchup. It really wasn't. There wasn't a lot of suspense in that game. And this sets up a delicious Sweet 16 matchup against Kentucky. Kentucky, of course, defeated Tennessee twice during the regular season. But for me, Willie, of the SEC teams to make it to the Sweet 16, Tennessee, by far, to me, was the most impressive of the weekend.
That's a strong take. I did not get a chance to watch Tennessee closely. I saw pieces of their game against UCLA from the plane. And fortunately last night we had a plane that had access to the TV. So I had 2 seats, one game on each TV, which was very convenient. So I want to thank the Preds for a good hookup there.
I think, by the way, I think the team I missed was Florida. I think Florida was the team I didn't name. Which is, sorry,
Bama,
Florida.
Auburn, Bama, Auburn, Florida, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Kentucky, and Tennessee
Correct.
are the 7.
Yes.
So I hope that meets Joe Rexroad's minimum requirements for not being a failure of the SEC being the greatest league of all time for a season. I'm doing that tongue in cheek, but I think that meets the requirements. I don't know how many people thought they would have more than 7. That's a lot. But as we talked about, they're going to start going head to head here. And that Kentucky-Tennessee game is going to be phenomenal. I think you got to give Ole Miss a little shout out here, right? They might, along with Arkansas, have been the least likely to do it. Ole Miss beat North Carolina and then turned around and hammered Iowa State. That one I didn't
walloped
see
the
coming.
Cyclones.
That was impressive how easy they did it. So I don't know. I mean, that's a really difficult question to answer. I guess if the answer is who looks the sharpest, I think you'd probably lean towards Tennessee. Who's the most unexpected? I think you got to lean Arkansas for sure. That win over St. John's, and you got to remember it was in Providence, where St. John's had the whole crowd. Arkansas has got great fans in general, but over the years, it's not what it was maybe when Nolan Richardson really had it rocking in the mid-90s and they traveled better. So that was a road game, basically, a semi-road game that Arkansas had to win. That was impressive to take down St. John's like that.
Yeah, I mean, there were some impressive games this past weekend. I look at Tennessee versus UCLA. I thought at the beginning, man, I thought UT was going to have problems with UCLA big man at Mara. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Mara. But in the second half, they sort of figured it out. And Chaz, and what I had been saying, Chaz need to play balanced halves, and he played balanced halves in this game. I think that's the only way that Tennessee can find themselves in the Final Four and ultimately trying to win a championship. Is it because they play great defense? You're always going to get great defense from Tennessee, but it's, can Chaz or can the team make sure that he stays involved and they get him enough open shots? And he doesn't need to be, open to him is probably a guy still on his hip. And he can shoot, because he can shoot the ball just as good as anybody coming off that pick in college basketball right now. So if he can have balanced halves, 13 one half or 14 one half, and close to that or even more the second half, it's hard to beat UT because they have what they had last year, a guy that can knock down shots and play both halves. But I look at the team that I was most impressed by, 2 of them. It was Florida versus UConn. Florida showed their mettle. They were tested. And I said to you guys, if UConn gets past this, man, it's going to be trouble for a lot of people because UConn was a tough out. And then you look at what Arkansas was able to do against St. John's. They stepped up and played big boy ball with St. John's the other night. So much so down the end. They owned the game down the end. The experience of, and not to say Pitino doesn't have, because he has a bunch of it, but I think the experience of his team fighting through their early woes and then becoming a better team, I think it helped them in the second half. So watch out for Arkansas. They don't shoot particularly well, but man, they rebound and they play defense. And it's hard for me to say a Cal team plays defense, because in Kentucky, they should have won more championships, but they didn't, because why? They were not playing consistent defense. This Arkansas team can be trouble moving forward.
The reason I landed on Tennessee is because I look at the other top teams in the SEC.
And there were top teams.
Auburn had its hands full with Creighton, and they pulled away in the second half. But we talked to Joe Rexroad on Friday, and he discussed with us how he thought Auburn looked vulnerable. And I think that Auburn is a great team, but they struggled with Creighton. Florida struggled with UConn. By the way, don't forget, back-to-back national champion UConn. I know this season was a down season for the Huskies, but Florida was getting all it could handle. Walter Clayton made some huge plays down the stretch for Florida. So they had their hands full with UConn. But Tennessee and even Alabama. Alabama didn't really struggle against St. Mary's, who defeated Vanderbilt the other day, and we will talk about that as well. But Auburn, we were at Boomba's last week. I mean, Alabama, I should say. We were at Boomba's last week. Robert Morris led that game in the second half. To me, of the top teams in the SEC, Auburn, Florida, Alabama, and Tennessee, I thought Tennessee stood out to me of those 4 teams. And it will be interesting to see what happens when Tennessee and Kentucky play for the 3rd time this season in the Sweet 16 in Indianapolis. Florida is going to have its hands full with Maryland. That was the best game. We finally got a buzzer beater.
Traveling.
Yeah, you know,
Traveling.
they don't call traveling in college basketball.
It's
we
a
all
joke.
know that.
That's a travel.
Yeah, he took about 8 steps.
That wasn't even
I mean,
the best.
that was Patrick Ewing didn't walk that much, and he used to do that move all the time for the Knicks.
That's where he learned it
the
from.
lane.
That's where he learned it.
Yeah, that was a Patrick Ewing special, and that was 3 full steps. That was not a Euro step. That was 3 steps.
Well, Derek Queen, who hit that game-winning shot, travel or no travel, Derek Queen said the quiet part out loud after the game. He was asked about his coach, Kevin Willard, and what makes him a coach worth listening to. And his initial response, he was joking, but come on, it wasn't really a joke. He said, well, he does pay us the money.
Hey, you pay the bucks. We get the buckets.
And that's another thing about this tournament, and I'd be curious for your guys' opinion on this as well. It's a pretty chalky Sweet 16, right? A lot of the top seeds have advanced to the second weekend. And there weren't really that many massive upsets. Again, correct me if I'm wrong here. Arkansas, the only double-digit seed to advance to the second weekend.
Yeah,
so you do not have, those great underdog stories like Loyola Chicago or St. Peter's or anything like that. And for a lot of casual fans, those underdog stories are a big part of the appeal of March Madness. And this morning on Get Up, I was listening to Jay Williams talk about how the NIL is the death of mid-major Cinderella runs in the NCAA tournament because power conference teams are now going to poach those star players from mid-majors. So in this day and age, we may see fewer of the Cinderella stories in the NCAA tournament because of name, image, and likeness. I'm curious what you guys think about that.
I think it's evolving, and I think it's probably evolving in that direction, if I had to guess, because I think for a while you had a period of time. Let's take, for example, Loyola Chicago that made it to the Final Four, Florida Atlantic. I think there was a window in there where the mid-majors actually started to gain an upper hand because NIL hadn't really taken, people hadn't really figured out how to do it yet. There were some schools that were not all in on it, not as organized with it. And you still had the Calipari model, which was give me the top freshmen, right? The top freshman recruits who are going to go one and done are going to play in the NBA. But I think there was a window in there where older mid-major teams could outfox major teams that had better talent but younger talent. But now you're seeing more teams like Tennessee that has a Chaz Lanier that played for 3 years somewhere else, a Dalton Connect that played several years somewhere else before coming there. They come there as an older guy who is also a great talent. And now you're seeing it. I do believe that is probably the direction it's going. Malik Dia, another Nashville kid, is another example who evolves from Vanderbilt to Belmont to Ole Miss. He gets paid big money to go to Ole Miss to leave Belmont. So Belmont's in a tough spot. Ole Miss is a better team after Belmont developed one of their best players. And now you see where Ole Miss is. So I do think that there is something to that, because I think the big schools that have the big money are now better and organized at how to distribute that money and get the right talent.
Yeah, now it's I heard because I was listening to the same thing, and I may have been listening to it a little bit later. when coach was on. I forget the coach. Why I can't remember the coach's name right now. This usually doing the college basketball.
Seth Greenberg.
Yeah, Seth Greenberg. Seth was on, and he was talking about this same thing about how these mid-major schools, and it's not necessarily being poached, or these lower level schools. It's just guys now had the opportunity legally to get paid for their services. So it's just like any job in corporate America. If you are making say $5, but you're doing $1 million worth of work, somebody's going to notice eventually. And somebody's going to say, you know what? They're only paying you $5. We're going to pay you $10 or 15 or 20. I'm just using numbers, small numbers. What are you going to say? You're going to say, okay, because you may have a family that you got to take care of. You may be paying off some loans, for college or whatnot. So you're going to take that opportunity to make more money. It's no different with college basketball now. If I'm playing at an Eastern Michigan, or if I'm playing at one of these small mid-major schools, and I'm averaging 25, 26, 20 points, 8 rebounds, somebody's going to look at that and want to pay me for my services. What am I to do? I'm going to move up.
How could you say no?
How could you say
even
no?
if I could tell you, hey, it's great, you're in a great place.
Exactly.
You're excelling, your team's winning, you love the people around you, you love your coach. I mean, if somebody's offering you $400,000 or $500,000, it's hard to turn that down. It's hard to turn that down.
So they're right. I mean, college basketball it's a pro league. It's a pro league. It's changed, and it's going to continue to change. Seth Greenberg said mid-major. He said smaller colleges or mid-major colleges are the G League now, and you can move up to a GMs, Division I, and now you're in the big league.
Now knows the agents.
Exactly.
They know how to work the portal.
So
they're better at knowing what they need out of the portal. They're only getting more and more organized.
Absolutely.
So that's only going to make it tougher on the little guys.
These smaller colleges, they're nothing but feeding grounds.
Yes.
For the bigger school. They're nothing but the G League right now. When you talk about college basketball, it's go to the G League, get developed, be the man on that team or woman on that team, and then you get paid on the next level. It's just like the G League and the NBA. Go there, get some work in, put some work in, dominate, and then we will sign you to a contract with the big boys.
615-737-1025. Which SEC team, there are 7 of them, that qualified for the Sweet 16, which SEC team was most impressive to you through the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament? 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coming up next, one of the SEC teams, unfortunately, that didn't make it to the second weekend. We will discuss Vanderbilt's loss to St. Mary's and where the Commodores can go from here. 615-737-1025. Hey, Predators fans, do you want to win tickets to a Preds game? Then be listening to Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow morning for Preds Pick to Click. All you have to do is guess a Preds goal scorer, and if they put the puck in the back of the net, you win. Be listening tomorrow morning for the cue to call on Robbie and Rexroad.
All right, let's talk Loan Pronto, the leader in quickly converting home equity into cold hard cash. So if you're in need of cash, so you can start something like a home remodel, or maybe you just need some cash to pay off some bills, credit card bills that have high interest rates, car loans that have high interest rates, and it's eating up your budget, you could be much better off through Loan Pronto. You've got home equity. The average person has over $300,000 if you're a homeowner. And we know in our living area, homes are worth a lot. So if you're in this position, you've been thinking about it, call Loan Pronto right now because they have a great engine of doing it conveniently. No paperwork, no cumbersome process, no junk fees, often no appraisal. Get approved in as little as 1 day with no hard credit pull. LoanPronto.com is the website. The phone number is simple, 615-499-5780. That's 499-5780, area code 615. Go to LoanPronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mace Vingan and Donick 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Talking NCAA tournament, 7 SEC teams in the Sweet 16. Unfortunately, one of them is not Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt loses 59-56 to St. Mary's on Friday. Vanderbilt led by as many as 12. They were up 39-27 with 16:20 left in the second half. St. Mary's tied it at 43 before ultimately coming out on top, and then St. Mary's lost to Alabama yesterday. So let's turn to our resident Commodore here for a moment, Willie Donick. I know it's always tough to see your Commodores fall. What's your analysis of this loss? Because from my perspective, and I think for a lot of people who followed Vanderbilt this season, and look, although the Commodores lost, this season was a resounding success considering where the program was before Mark Byington took over. So kudos to Vanderbilt for that. But the one thing I think a lot of people are going to point to, Willie, one issue that Vanderbilt did have quite a bit this season was its inability to hold on to leads in the second half. And the Commodores, again, led by as many as 12 in the second half. But SMU, I guess we can call them SMU, not to be confused with the Southern Methodist University.
with
But
the Mustangs.
Right, wow, with the Mustangs. But the Gales were able to battle back and win the game. So what was your biggest takeaway from Vanderbilt's loss on Friday?
Weird game. Just a really weird plotting game. We were told right from the start, and this comes right from that Ken Pom, the slowest low possession team in the field, basically. It was St. Mary's. They play a unique style, huge bodies in the middle, and that was going to be a tough matchup for Vanderbilt. I thought Vanderbilt dictated the game for about 25 minutes or so. Had them right where they wanted them. Their style was winning out. And then for the rest of the game, St. Mary's style won out, right? The size started bothering Vanderbilt. They started knocking down a few shots from the outside. St. Mary's was cold in the first half. They heated up in the second half. And then defensively, St. Mary's just cut off all sources of offense in the paint for Vanderbilt down the stretch. They couldn't get anything easy. They got no fast break points in the second half, and they just were not able to stay hot enough from the outside because they had some tough looks. They were contested. And we mentioned the X factor, A.J. Hoggard. He would be a guy that could elevate them in a game like that. And unfortunately, he kind of trended the same way that he had down the stretch of the season when they cooled off. He just didn't have a very good game. And he really wasn't even in there at the end of the game. So it was tough. It was tough to watch them fade a little bit at the end. It's kind of like a Cinderella. It turned a little bit into a pumpkin at midnight to some degree. And you're right. There were some games where they put themselves in great position. I almost felt like they almost did themselves a disservice because they looked so good to build the leads in a lot of these games, and then they just wore down. And maybe their weaknesses caught up to them. They overachieved to get the lead, and then, like I said, they kind of came crashing back down to earth. So overall, absolute home run, incredible season, great story. And now, today the portal opens, right? It's portal season. The NCAA tournament, we can't even get excited about the Sweet 16 because now the next few days you watch, you're going to have this guy, that guy going into the portal, and it's the painful side of all of this. I'm hoping that they can hang on to their nucleus and, do what they did last year and find the right guys to mix in, because it's going to be very hard again to compete. But I commend every one of those guys for what they did. And it's just too bad. Devin McLaughlin had the three to tie it up. Pretty good look. I mean, they made it a great effort at the end there to have the three to tie it. It could have been one of those moments where they hit it and they go overtime and who knows what happens. But really weird game. St. Mary's is kind of a strange, unique team, and they had just enough to catch up.
I have a portal question for Derek and a tactical question for Willie. So, Derek, as Willie mentioned, the transfer portal opens today. We need a sound effect for that. We'll work on that. The transfer portal opens today. One thing that I think Mark Byington must absolutely prioritize this portal season is finding some size down low. No disrespect to Jalen Carey, who's 6'7", Devin McLaughlin. Oh, sorry, Carey 6'8". McLaughlin is 6'7". Both friends of the program, by the way. We had Jalen Carey and Devin McLaughlin on the program.
Those guys were phenomenal. Phenomenal what they faced every night and did everything they possibly could with given their size, right? They're undersized guys.
Mark Byington must absolutely, Derek, prioritize finding a quote-unquote traditional big
they need some help
in the portal.
Yeah, they're going to have to get some length, and not just size. They got to get size that can play multiple positions. If you get you a 6'10", 6'11" guy, he has to be a stretch. I think in this league, you need it. Look at what Auburn's doing. Look at what Alabama's doing. Look at what these teams that have the height, but not only the height, but those guys can stretch the court and also shoot outside. So desperately, Vanderbilt needs to find guys like that. And then, as much as I, like Tanner and I like Edwards, they still need to find them a true floor general. I don't think they have a true floor general on this roster right now. Maybe Tanner turns into it. He's a freshman now. He looks
Yeah, I
good.
like him.
Yeah, I like
I
him.
think he can do it
Mhm.
potentially. I think he's super young, just a true
Exactly.
freshman. I'm hoping he turns into that. But you're right. I mean, he's not the full package yet. I really like what I see.
Yeah, I like
I've-
Tanner. And if he can develop into that, great. But that's something that I think Byington needs to go out and get. He has guys that are going to return to the program. Hopefully, no one transfers out to go get more money somewhere else. Hopefully, he can keep everybody in house. And while keeping everybody in house, he can bring in that stretch 4 or 5 guy, or bring in that guy that is just going to have that defensive presence in the middle of the court, because they need it desperately. This
rim
team played,
protector.
this team played their tail off considering their size. But just think if they had size in the middle, and I'm not just talking about size, I'm talking about guys that can really like play, go out there and dominate. You don't need to average 15 points, but if you can give me 10 and 8 a game, somewhere around there, we're good. Vandy didn't have that guy that had the height also. So if they can go out and get that guy that can be a stretch also, and that true floor general, even though they have Tanner there and you figure he's going to get better and going to develop in Byington's system, you still need a guy that I think that is seasoned, that can come. They thought Hoggard was going to be that guy this year, but he turned out not to be him. They need a guy that has the experience of a Hoggard, maybe a guy you bring in that still has 2 years left. He needs to have the experience of a Hoggard, but the ability to control the team and make baskets when baskets are there to be made.
Quickly, Willie, I do want to ask you one tactical question. Mark Byington in this game took his final timeout with 2:43 left. If I recall the situation correctly, the Commodores were at half court. They looked a bit frazzled. Byington burns his final timeout with just under 3 minutes left. It led to an interesting conversation among the commentators on the game. And near the end of the game, when they had a couple of those 3 attempts to force overtime, they probably could have used that timeout in hindsight. What did you make of Byington's decision to use his final timeout when he did?
Yeah, a little unorthodox for sure. I thought the commentators made a good point that maybe I wasn't thinking at the time, is that in today's college game, it's a good bet that somebody's going to foul out. There's going to be a review for a ball knocked out of bounds. The Oregon-Arizona game, I thought, would never end last night. It went on well past midnight Eastern time, and it seemed like every play, hey, Gene Sarator, who do you think it went off of? I mean, poor Gene, the guy probably never sleeps. But those are mini timeouts, right? So when that happens, you gather everybody over, and it's essentially a timeout. But that being said, it didn't cost them in that game. It could have cost them, because I don't think you can argue with the look they got on the last play. They got a pretty decent. Sometimes the scramble plays, you get the best looks. It's a pretty decent 3-point shooter. You're not your best, but McLaughlin got a good look and just didn't knock it down. But yeah, it was an interesting move by Coach Byington, and I'm guessing he was banking on that there would be enough stoppages that they would know what they needed to do in the situation.
615-737-1025. The NCAA tournament continues on Thursday. Looking forward to it. But coming up next, I want to introduce something to all of you, which I heard the other day. It's called the Davis Mills Path. And I will explain coming up next. 615-737-1025. And by the way, 1025 The Game and Bavarian Beer House have teamed up to give away tickets to see Billy Idol and Joan Jett and the Blackhearts at Bridgestone Arena in the all-inclusive Eurostone Club on Saturday, May 17th. Tune in to Chase and Big Joe tomorrow during the 9 o'clock hour for the keyword to text in for your chance to win tickets. Bavarian Beer House, located at Opry Mills Mall. Enjoy traditional German beer, brats, giant pretzels, and more. and their expansive beer hall and garden. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Cam Ward's Pro Day is later today.
Oh, yeah.
It starts at 3 p.m. Central. I'm sure Jared Stillman will be in Jared's film room, TM, dissecting it all. And we will discuss Cam Ward's Pro Day as well. But I wanted to bring to all of you something that I heard the other day, the Davis Mills path. And remember, Davis Mills, he's the Texans quarterback, the one with the long neck. Robbie Stanley loves to bring that up any chance he gets. Davis Mills started the quarterback for a couple of years for the Texans during their lean years before handing over the reins to CJ Stroud. And I was listening to the Athletic Football Show. Robert Mays and Dane Brugler were talking about the Titans and the situation they find themselves in with the number 1 overall pick. And I thought Robert Mays, who introduced to me this Davis Mill path, made an interesting observation. This is Robert Mays with Dane Brugler on the Athletic Football Show.
Two things I would say here if I were the Titans and weighing between taking a quarterback at 1 or taking a quarterback a little bit later in the draft. I've talked about the virtues of the Davis Mills path. If you want to take the Davis Mills path, that's easy when you exist in total anonymity and the results don't matter. And that's kind of where the Texans were for 2 straight years. I don't think the Titans are there for 2 reasons. One, this coaching staff needs to win some football games. And I think they're aware of that. They won 3 games last season. And that is probably going to be at least a little bit of a driver of some urgency here. 2, I do think this team wants to create some excitement around the franchise. They want a new stadium. I think there are a lot of incentives here to not just punt on this season overall. So I do think that's why going with a quarterback at 1 versus, we'll see what we can get in the 3rd round. They don't even have a 3rd round pick. We'll see what we can get in the middle of the 2nd round after we trade back feels more likely to me.
So that was Robert Mays with Dane Brugler on the Athletic Football Show. And it got me going down the Houston Texans rabbit hole. So Davis Mills was drafted by the Texans in 2021. I believe he was a 3rd round pick in 2021. Remember, that season was the season where Deshaun Watson was inactive all season long. So the Texans started that season with Tyrod Taylor as their starting quarterback. Then Davis Mills played some games. Tyrod Taylor came back in. Then Davis Mills came back in. And then Davis Mills was the starter for the Texans in 2022. He started 26 games over 2 seasons in 2021 and 2022. The Texans were the worst team in the NFL over those 2 seasons. They won 7 games in 2 years. They went 7, 26, and 1 combined in 2021 and 2022. But Davis Mills helped, quote unquote, helped the Texans draft Derek Stingley, who, by the way, just became the highest paid cornerback in NFL history. And the following season, Davis Mills helped again set up the Texans to draft CJ Stroud. And over the past 2 seasons, the Texans have been the AFC South winners with 10-7 records. I do think they did not look as promising this season as they did the season before. But it got me thinking about what that would look like for the Titans. And I think the obvious answer is they're just going to play Will Levis at quarterback. Like that, like Davis Mills and Will Levis, it feels like they're one and the same, right? But what do you guys think of that? This idea of the Davis Mills path? I agree with what Robert Mays is saying. This coaching staff probably, well, most definitely needs to win some games. You want to generate some excitement with the new stadium, which Derek, you bring up all the time and correctly. But I'm wondering what it would look like if the Titans did that, if the Titans took the quote unquote Davis Mills path, and if that might be the better path, if it plays out the same way as it did with the Texans. What do you think about it, Derek?
If this was the end of, say, a Davis Mills type of project, because that's what the last 2 seasons would have been for the Titans. The last 2 seasons they've gone through, really 3.5, well, 2.5. That was sort of their Davis Mills experiment. Why? Because they had Ryan Tannehill, but at that point, Ryan Tannehill was declining, dealt with some injuries. Then they brought in, then they draft Will Levis, then they bring in Mason Rudolph. All 3 of those things, or during those years as they were happening, sort of led up to them now having the number 1 pick. But, unfortunately for them, it's not a CJ Stroud type of draft. That's what's getting them. Had this been last season with Caleb Williams in a bunch, then yes, it works out perfectly. But this year isn't that. Even though I do believe that if you love Cam Ward, take him with number 1. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. Now, you got to surround him to help, help elevate the team and help him in the process. But I think if you draft him, you'll be fine. But if this was last year, then yes, the sort of Davis Mills philosophy would have worked, because they would have gotten one of those quarterbacks in the top 5. They probably would have ended up getting Caleb Williams, not Caleb Williams. Yeah, it was Jaden Daniels. Or Jaden Daniels. They would have been able to get one of the two. But because this is not that year, that's why everybody is so, anxious or so scared that the Titans are going to make the wrong pick. Why? Because there's not a Jaden Daniels. There's not a Caleb Williams. There's not presumably a Bo Nix in this draft. Now you're dealing with, the probably 8th guy that would have got drafted last year based on what people are talking about. You have a chance to draft him number 1 as opposed of the guys last year. So it wouldn't work moving forward. And you and I talked about this off here. One reason why is because of the head coach.
And Willie, the head coaching situation for the Texans, remember, they had 2 one-and-done coaches.
Mm-hmm.
That first season, it was David Culley. I believe that's the right order. David Culley in 2021 and Lovie Smith in 2022. So not all teams are afforded the opportunity to have multiple 13-loss seasons, which the Texans were able to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious for your opinion, Willie, on the virtues of this quote-unquote Davis Mills path.
Well, I think we've discussed the Davis Mills path. I think along the frontier, the Davis Mills path was probably crossed, as an option. By the way, is Davis Mills still on the Texans? Is he on a team right now?
Mm-hmm.
Davis Mills is better than Will Levis.
Is he not the backup for CJ Stroud? I don't think he's out there.
I guess so. But they've had the Case Keenums and
man,
other
he's got a
people
really
seem to show up.
long neck. I'm looking at his pro football page. He's got a really long neck. Robbie's onto something. Anyway, I'm sorry, Willie.
So, I don't have a problem with that plan at all. I've been saying all along that if you don't feel the guys there, don't just take a quarterback with the first pick because, hey, I think you need to win some games. You need to create excitement. No, it's got to be the right guy. It's got to be a guy that's worthy of the first pick. You don't want to make the pick for the wrong reason, which I think a lot of people have made the mistake before. And the ownership, the general manager, the supreme ruler of football have to understand that is going to affect the coaching staff, and you evaluate the coaching staff based on what you give him. But we're talking about roster building that's going to take multiple years to achieve, and you have to take the best of what's available. I just don't think the philosophical take that, and I think that podcast is really good. They do their homework. Dane Brugler is a smart guy. I just don't think you can go philosophical and just say, hey, I need a quarterback, so let's go to the grocery store. Then you see that you don't have that premier quarterback that's worthy of the first pick. But hey, my philosophy is I got to win football games for my coaching staff. I got a new stadium. I have to draft a quarterback. I don't think that's the right way to go. Unless you think Cam Ward's worthy of the first pick.
Yeah.
I'm not really in that camp. If you really feel he is, then that works out well.
If the Titans,
that's not what I've been hearing about him.
If the Titans wanted to take this path, they are already set up to do it. They have Will Levis. They have Brandon Allen. They could start one of those 2 quarterbacks, lose a lot of games, and
even find another guy. They could find another guy that is Davis Mills-esque, something like that. There's ways you could go with that. And I've said I'm fine with that if that's what they want to do.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on this quote unquote Davis Mills path as presented by Robert Mays on the Athletic Football Show. Would you be open-minded to the Titans taking a similar path this season as opposed to drafting Cam Ward and hoping that excitement leads to winning sooner rather than later. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on it coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game. D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, talking Titans and the idea of the quote-unquote Davis Mills path as presented by Robert Mays on the Athletic Football Show. Before we get to your calls and texts, I just want to play that clip again in case you missed it. This was Robert Mays on the Athletic Football Show.
Things I would say here if I were the Titans and weighing between taking a quarterback at 1 or taking a quarterback a little bit later in the draft. I've talked about the virtues of the Davis Mills path. If you want to take the Davis Mills path, that's easy when you exist in total anonymity and the results don't matter. And that's kind of where the Texans were for 2 straight years. I don't think the Titans are there for 2 reasons. One, this coaching staff needs to win some football games. And I think they're aware of that. They won 3 games last season. And that is probably going to be at least a little bit of a driver of some urgency here. 2, I do think this team wants to create some excitement around the franchise. They want a new stadium. I think there are a lot of incentives here to not just punt on this season overall. So I do think that's why going with a quarterback at 1 versus, we'll see what we can get in the 3rd round. They don't even have a 3rd round pick. We'll see what we can get in the middle of the 2nd round after we trade back feels more likely to me.
That was Robert Mays on the Athletic Football Show. And I agree with Robert Mays that the Titans probably can't do it. But what if they did? 615-737-1025. Let's start with Brad is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Brad, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, it's almost like we're talking ourselves into Ward. I feel like he would be number 4 or 5 in any other QB draft. He didn't generate that much excitement this year, except for a couple of come-behind wins against the ACC teams. I just think that we should trade it back, take the best player available. And he's not the best player available. There's a couple other people that are ahead of him. If we traded back to the Giants, we certainly get one of those people. If we traded even further back to the Raiders, we'd still get a good offensive tackle or something, and then go in the 2nd round for Milroe or even Jackson Dart, or just try to sign someone that gets through the year. We're not going to win this year. We're not. The coaching staff's new, the team's new, and I think this guy's not Trevor Lawrence coming out of college. So I feel like we should just be patient, wait till next year, build a good team. They're building a good offensive line. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Brad. And Willie, I think Brad speaks for a lot of Titans fans who see Cam Ward. And by the way, Cam Ward's pro day later today. I believe it starts at 3:00 Central. People see Cam Ward and have the same questions that you have about Cam
It's 3:30
Ward.
Central.
3:30 Central. They have the same questions that you have about Cam Ward. It was only about a month ago, right, where it seemed inevitable that the Titans were going to trade out of this pick. But now over the past month, we've heard a lot of reporting that the Titans love Cam Ward. And we'll talk to Teron Davenport at 1:00 about this as well. But is Cam Ward that can't miss prospect that you must absolutely have? Or why not just trade down, take the best player available at another position? Maybe it's Abdul Carter. Maybe it's Travis Hunter. You throw Will Levis back at quarterback, and maybe you end up in the same spot again. It did work out for the Texans. It doesn't work out for everybody, but Davis Mills did help the Texans indirectly, I suppose. Actually, directly, because he was not very good at quarterback. But he did help the Texans get to where they are right now. So I do think that Brad speaks for a lot of Titans fans.
The Texans were really bad for 3 years. And you're right. They did sacrifice a couple of coaches in the meantime. Poor David Culley, a former Commodore, by the way, and Lovie Smith. They were just sort of, taking up space. And they took the fall for bad teams that they kind of knew were going to be bad, especially with the messy situation that Deshaun Watson created. So I do understand in the clip where the guy says, hey, the coaching staff needs to win games. The coaching staff always needs to win games. You just have to make the best of the situation. I hope Cam Ward lights it up today and becomes even more attractive of a prospect. To me, it's not logical to say a guy stock you're going to learn something you didn't already know if you watch him light it up against no defense today. The bottom line is he worthy of the first pick? And if you don't think he is, does somebody else or 2 or 3 other teams think because then you can maybe leverage that pick for maximum value and get more picks. Because the reason you would go with the Davis, I don't know why this is a new name. It's the same thing that we were talking about. You just have a shiny new name, the Davis Mills plan, because we're going back through Texans history, I guess. But the exploratory, I've used the exploratory thing. If you want to go that route because it's the best way, the quickest way to build your roster back up, then do that. If you do think that Cam Ward is worthy of the first pick, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just skeptical of it because of what the caller just said. If you look at a lot of evaluations, you hear that a lot, that in a given year, Cam Ward doesn't grade out as high as a lot of the quarterbacks from X amount of years past, 5 years back down the road, 10 years in the past, 15 years. You have a grade of every guy that you evaluate, and you can reference the one that you pointed out. Adam, where would he rank among the top 20? Right, he was what, 18th or something on the list.
18th of 21, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, and this was that was the 5-year window, right? The
Yes,
last
between
5 years of
2020
quarterback
and now.
evaluation.
Yes.
Okay.
So to me, that doesn't sound like a guy worthy of the first pick to me.
And we're calling it the Davis Mills path because that's what Robert Mays called it.
Yeah.
I also just want to give a shout out to Davis Mills, which I have to shout very high up into the air because his ears are so much higher because his neck is so long. Just go look at this guy's headshot. Robbie Stanley was onto something. His neck is huge.
Listen, if you just take, and because the caller brought up Trevor Lawrence, and listen, I was, a starch Trevor Lawrence guy, Trevor Lawrence guy when he came out. I thought he was going to be, I thought it was the bee's knees, and I thought he was going to be the best thing since sliced bread. It hadn't turned out that way, but he still has played good football. But if you look at, and we're just talking numbers, and this is why all this stuff is subjective, where he would have ranked it as far as evaluations over the last course of the 5 years. But based upon just his numbers alone for 3 years, his numbers are comparable or better than any one of these quarterbacks over the last 5 years. They compare with a lot of them. They may be below some of them, but they're above others. So that's why I said all of this, well, he would have ranked here. It's all subjective because we don't know if he was in the pool of guys last year, how they would have truly evaluated him. They can say, well, we evaluated him this way this year. Last year, it would have, he wouldn't have compared to those guys. Well, we don't know because you didn't lump him in with those guys. Okay, so just think, if some of those guys that were juniors or had a year left, had they been in Cam's draft class, which is this year, how would those guys have ranked based upon the season they may have had? Their seasons may not have turned out the way they did in previous years. They may have taken a step back. We saw Will Levis go through this exact same thing. Had he come out the year before, he probably would have got drafted higher. Why? Because it seemed like his play was better. The numbers were better, but he chose to stay another year. And what happened? It hurt his stock. The kid out of USC, what is his name? The quarterback, lefty. Why am I forgetting his name? Won a Heisman with
Matt Leinart.
Yeah, Matt Leinart. Had Matt Leinart come out the previous year, he would have been probably the number 1 pick in the draft.
I'm thinking of another example. Last week, we talked about Luther Burden for a little bit.
Exactly.
Luther Burden probably hurt his draft stock by staying in college for another year because he had a down year statistically. He had a 1,000-yard season 2 seasons ago. And now it appears that Burden, who many thought was going to be maybe the top receiver off the board, may not even get drafted in the first round.
Exactly. So all of this stuff is subjective. Am I saying, and I've said this and I'm going to repeat it. Titans, if you feel that he's the guy, whether I think he's the guy or not, whether Willie or Adam think he's the guy or not, we can give our opinions. But if you feel that Cam Ward is your guy that can lead your franchise into this new stadium and beyond, when I say beyond, I'm talking about 15 years, and play good football, and then go get him. Because the Philadelphia Eagles have shown the world, and I'm bringing up Philly because it's most recent, but the Philadelphia Eagles have shown you that you can win 2 Super Bowls out of 3 appearances with not a number one, without a quarterback that is deemed a Trevor Lawrence or a Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels. Hurts wasn't that guy when he came out. Neither was the last guy. He was a backup. Yeah, Foles was a backup. So when if indeed you draft Cam Ward, and you may in that room, y'all may think a consensus that he's the guy, but you understand that he is going to have to be developed too. Then you need to make sure you go out in the draft and further into free agency before the season gets going with surrounding this young man with talent. You surround him with talent and then let him develop.
Mark has been waiting patiently. Mark from Nashville, our friend Mark on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Mark, thanks for calling. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I got a couple questions for y'all. My God, I had to put $2.50 in this payphone, man. Y'all alone.
Hey, man, that's how we roll, man. You got to pay for the service.
I know you do, man. Yeah, I'm coming out of pocket. I'm going to get me a cell phone, man, or something. I got to stay off this payphone. Yeah, how you doing, Adam, Willie, D. Mace? How y'all doing, man?
Good.
All right.
I got a couple of questions for y'all. Adam, I got one for you too, just in a few, but you probably gonna get mad at me, but hey, you'll get over it though. But Davis Mills, Adam, are you calling him an ostrich? I mean, you keep saying long neck. Are you calling Davis Mills an ostrich?
If the shoe fits, wear it.
Or a giraffe, an ostrich, a giraffe.
Yeah, we'll just call him Mr. Ostrich then, Davis Mills. But how many games has Callahan got to win to keep his job? I mean, I've told y'all several times he's a lame duck coach coming into the season. He can't afford. Now, they missed out on some veterans that they should have tried to sign. I'm like D-Mace. I would have went and got Jameis Winston just to hold the seat for a minute. Forget Brandon Allen. I would have got Jameis. Jameis would put points up if nothing else. Now, he might throw a pick six. He might throw you 3 or 4 interceptions in a game. But the man can move the offense, so I would have made that move if I was them. But the Giants got him now. Now Cam Ward, I've been on his wagon all season long. I watched every game he's played. Been great. To me, he's elite. He's got that it in him. He's got that comeback. And but I don't think he should go to the Titans though, man. Not because if you fire Callahan, he's looking at another OC, another head coach. That's not good for him. He doesn't have great playmakers around him right now. I know they shored up the offensive line a little bit and stuff. I'm like Willie, though. I'm going to go with Willie on this. Hype him up. Get him up as far as you can. Make the Giants, Browns, somebody come in with a big-time offer. Go on and trade back because Titans do need players and stuff. They really do. They need picks. They don't need just one player. And I know they're going into a new stadium. I wish Cam could go to my team, the Raiders. I wish he'd fall and go to the Raiders because I just don't think the Titans have that kind of playmaking talent around him. I'm not Calvin really. I like NWA better than all of them because I think he brings his lunch pail and the man works. Get a man his bag. But Adam, before I go, I want you to watch that game Thursday night or Friday night. Let's go with the Arizona Wildcats.
Oh boy!
And just watch them take Cooper Flagg and the Duke Blue Devils down. That's what we need to watch. Hey, Vanderbilt had a good season. Sorry about that, Willie. And Willie also. Hey, Willie, and also I know you're a Mets fan, but y'all gonna regret the day you got Soto on that team, man. You could have bought a whole organization with what you paid him. I just don't think he's that guy, Willie. I don't. And they're trying to do like the Dodgers. It ought to be criminal what the Dodgers out here doing, man, trying to buy championships. Go earn it. I'd like to see Pittsburgh or somebody just knock them out in the playoffs this year. Because ask the Yankees. See what they got them, giving up everything in your minor league system, doing all this trading. What have they gotten out of that? Bad deal. But, hey, man, y'all have a good day. Go Wildcats. See you, Adam. D-Mace and Willie. See y'all, man.
Yes.
Mark touching all the bases there. We got football, we got college basketball, we got baseball.
Mark, and unfortunately for you, Mark, NWI is no longer a Titan, nor is NWA.
I think they've been out since like 94.
Yeah, NWA broke up in the late 90s. That group. No, I'm talking about the group
out there about them.
That stands for Never Walk Alone, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Okay.
They're walking alone now. And then NWI signed with the Miami Dolphins. If you
Yes.
didn't hear.
Sorry, Mark. Sorry to break that.
Mark. He got his bag. He got his bag.
Sorry to break that news to you. 615-737-1025. By the way, Jeff on our text line says, holy bleep, you weren't kidding. Davis Mills should be a better quarterback than he is with that bird's eye view of the field he gets. It looks like he went go gadget neck, and then it just remained that way. Anytime we can get an Inspector Gadget reference on this show, I will gladly take it. 615-737-1025. We will continue to take your reaction to the Titans quarterback situation. Remember, Cam Ward's pro day is this afternoon. 615-737-1025. Let's see if I have anything to tell our fine friends. Yes, we do. This week's Nashville's Best Deal is Boombah's Pizza and Watch Bar. We had an excellent time out at Boombah's last Thursday and Friday in Murfreesboro and Spring Hill. Just in time for the NCAA tournament. Score half off a $30 gift card and enjoy their award-winning pizza and handcrafted beverages. Visit them in Nashville, East Nashville, Spring Hill, or Murfreesboro. Visit thegamenashville.com/deals now while supplies last. D. Mace, Finken, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. That's why David Janes is the best in the business.
I like the song.
Were either of you fans of Inspector
Oh,
Gadget?
I love Inspector Gadget.
Willie?
No,
Wow, Willie.
That actually surprises me.
Wow.
I know.
Usually
I
I can
tried
count
it.
on you for my pop culture random.
Did you not like
Yeah, no,
that
I
Inspector
watched
Gadget
it.
really wasn't
I
figuring
remember
it
it was
out? It
on.
was the dog.
It was on all the time, and I never gravitated towards that. I don't know. I don't know why.
But don't y'all realize that it never was Inspector Gadget that figured it was the dog that figured it out. The
Yeah.
dog would figure it out.
Nobody
every
said he
time.
was good at his job.
It's always the dog.
Exactly. It was
And I
always the
believe
dog.
there was a live action version.
Yeah, it was.
With Matthew Broderick
Yes.
as Inspector Gadget.
Mhm. They need to do another remake.
That sounds like it's right up Willie's alley. Matthew Broderick, Inspector Gadget. I thought that you would be all over that, Willie.
I know. I'm surprised that I'm not, but I just never got there. Never got there.
That's all right.
Big
Well,
fan of Matthew Broderick.
Yeah,
Big
see?
fan.
That's what I thought. I
Yeah.
thought Matthew Broderick playing Inspector Gadget would do it for you. But we're talking about what Robert Mays at the Athletic Football Show called the Davis Mills path, and why the Titans are probably not in the same position to take the Davis Mills path. Remember, Davis Mills started at quarterback for the better part of 2 seasons for the Houston Texans. The first season is when Deshaun Watson was inactive all season. Then they traded him to the Browns. The Texans were the worst team in the NFL over those 2 seasons. Those 2 seasons did help the Texans land Derek Stingley as well as CJ Stroud. So although Robert Mays doesn't think that the Titans can take that path, and I tend to agree with him, I'm thinking about the virtues of taking that path. But speaking of the coaching staff, Dylan on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com, says, if the Titans plan on tanking this year and going the Davis Mills route, then why are we even talking about quarterbacks? We should just go ahead and start discussing who the next coach should be, since Brian Callahan would be fired. And look, the Texans were able to wallow in anonymity for a couple of seasons. And as Willie mentioned, they went through 2 coaches in those 2 seasons, David Culley for one and Lovie Smith for the other. The other interesting portion of this, Derek, is the 2021 season was the first season post Bill O'Brien, and Bill O'Brien had general manager responsibilities for the Houston Texans. That was the first season, 2021, with Nick Caserio as GM. So there is a similarity there with Mike Borgonzi being a first-time general manager here. So with that in mind, do you see any, to me, Borgonzi, this is his opportunity, right? You don't want to waste it. He comes into a situation where he has the number 1 pick in the draft. But I'm wondering if Borgonzi himself has some runway here because he's a first-year GM, or do you think the pull of, hey, I've got the number 1 pick, this team is down in the dumps, I've got to turn it around immediately, if you think that pull is too strong?
I would tend to believe in this situation that if the Titans have another bad season, it will be the head coach and his coaching staff that would be gone, because I think that, Borgonzi goes in, discussing with Brinkert. I'm sure, hey, listen, I'm sure he had nothing, he didn't go in and say, change, hey, I want a different head coach. But you have to understand, as a GM, I'm coming in, I'm taking this job, that if he doesn't improve as a head coach, it shouldn't be on me, especially if I go out and address those areas that we need to address. If I go counter to what the last 2 regimes did, and that's what they did. They went out and they signed guys that were available, that could be available for them during the season, guys that didn't miss time the previous year. So they went out and they got guys that they assume more likely than not that they would be available for all 17 games. So if I am doing that as a GM and I'm plugging, these holes in whatever way we're doing it, and we're all in agreement on it, and then you still go out and you don't have a good season, then my job should be safe if I'm the GM. It's the head coach now that needs to be looking for another, and that's typically how it goes. You know, it went that way with the Titans. We saw it firsthand. How it should have been just a clean slate of everybody, but they did it in stages, and they started off doing it wrong, firing the GM, keeping the head coach, adding another GM, firing the head coach, keeping the GM, then firing the GM and keeping the head coach. No, you should have just cleaned house with everybody and started anew. But if you don't, then you will follow the same pattern, I'm sure, because you're going to give the GM leeway to try to get this team. Because the last thing you want to do, and tell me if you agree with this, Willie, is to go another year with significant changes at the top.
Yeah, I think continuity is always the good thing if you feel like you've got the right people there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is probably the toughest thing to do sometimes is to evaluate, let's just say it's a coach, but it could be anybody, but let's say it's the coaching staff, evaluate them when they don't have the horses. Can you assess and communicate to your fan base, we believe this guy is the right guy. We haven't given him the tools to succeed yet. And so our record might be X, but we still think he's the guy who is the right guy to succeed. That's the question. I think too many people buckle and say, well, his record is 7 and whatever in 2 years, and we got to make a change. And I think you can spin your wheels that way. Now, if you really don't feel like he's the right guy, and I think that was the debate about Ran Carthon, right? And D-Mace, I think you were alongside of me. I pointed out that when people would just say what the record was in his 2 years as the GM, I don't think that was being fair to Ran Carthon because of what he inherited. But at the day in, day out, the people that evaluated him, if they just felt like he wasn't the right guy, then you have to make that decision. But whether that was fair or unfair, I think Callahan could be in a similar place because I think no matter what they do with the first pick, it's going to be really hard to have a much better record. I don't think you just try to make a pick to win a few more games. The end game is to become a contender, and you're still a couple years away, roster building wise, from doing that. So you have to make the best decisions, and you have to communicate with your fan base to say that we might not win right away. And so don't hold the coach totally responsible for the one loss record. He's going to be evaluated on, is he doing a good job for what he has, based on what he has to work with.
By the way, Josh on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com says, I don't know if I could trust someone that's never seen Inspector Gadget, LOL. Although, Willie, you have seen it, you just don't.
Oh, I've seen it. I just never
it.
took to it when I was a kid or when did that show come out? Was that 90s, late 80s?
I watched
originally?
Inspector Gadget when I was younger.
Yeah,
So,
I watched it when I was younger. Yeah.
But when it first came out,
that was
it was probably 80s, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It premiered in 1982, late 1982.
82. God, that's even further back than I thought. But yeah, I was a Mr. Saturday Morning Cartoon, man. I watched all of that stuff. But I never gravitated toward that one.
We do have some breaking news from Paul Kaharski of PaulKaharski.com, friend of the station as well. The Titans took Cam Ward to dinner last night.
Ooh, were they supposed to let
Did
him
they propose
sit in his
What do you
his
think?
hotel?
What do you think?
Did they ask him out?
Order out?
What do you think? What do you think they ate?
I don't know. Where did they go first? Do anybody know where they go?
I feel like football coaches just love steak.
Did they say, hey, I know
Yeah, they
a
had
great
to go to a
place, or did they say, Cam,
steakhouse.
you go anywhere you want, we'll pay for it. Tell me where we want to go.
They
Like
probably went
I don't know. What's
Do
your
you
favorite
think they took
restaurant?
him to a
We'll go there.
rooftop steakhouse? Do you think they took him,
They went
Seafood.
They went to All American Burger.
to a schmoozy place?
There's a reference for you, Willie. They took him to All American Burger.
Or did they just go grab some tacos? You never know.
What is the All American Burger?
That was the restaurant at Fast Times at Ridgemont High, right?
Oh yeah, with the secret sauce.
Yes. No
With the-
shirt,
with
no
the
shoes,
ketchup
no
and mayo.
dice.
If anybody knows where the Titans took Cam Ward for dinner, please call.
Smart money.
McDonald's.
Smart money is it's a steakhouse.
Yeah, of course.
Coaches,
Yeah.
football coaches love them some meat.
You think it could have been a good seafood place.
It could have been a good seafood place, maybe a place with
What-
some sushi, perhaps.
Yeah.
They're in
Were they allowed
Miami
to
after
do
all.
that, or was that sort of like, is that some scoop Paul's throwing out there that they
Yeah, they
like,
could
that
take
was
him out
not
to dinner.
supposed to be?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
imagine.
but were there other teams that wanted to take him out to lunch or post?
do you think this was? Do you
happy
think this
hour
was
before
a
dinner?
a bachelor situation where
Yeah.
Cam Ward had some roses to give away,
And he chose to give it to the Titans.
and he said, "Look, New York Giants, we can do 30 minutes of happy hour, but then I have to go to dinner with the Titans. We can have
Could be.
we can have one
I'm
beverage.
just wondering.
Yeah.
We can have one beverage and some finger food,
Yeah.
a little
that's
a
what it is.
little appetizer, and then
Yeah.
I've got to go eat whatever I'm eating with the Titans. 615-737-1025. John in the Borough is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. John, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
I'll tell you what they ate last night,
What's that?
bro.
What did he say?
I don't know.
Crow.
Foles? Fro?
I think you said crow.
Crow? He ate crow last night. Why would they eat crow?
I don't know.
Because the Titans are going to be wrong by drafting Cam Ward, and they will be eating crow eventually.
I guess so. If that's what.
Don't you do that after you
Yeah.
grew up?
Yeah, you don't eat the
yeah.
you don't
They haven't screwed up
beforehand.
yet.
you don't eat crow beforehand.
Did people pre-crow eat around here? Do you pre-crow eat? I know
Preemptive crow.
people.
A preemptive crow.
I know people pre-game. I get that. When they're going out or before the game. I know, but do you pre-crow eat? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, you can set yourself up to allow yourself to like, hey, we knew we were taking a risk. We had some pre-crow.
Yeah. What does pre-crow look like?
You're the one asking.
But he said crow. I think that's what he said. He said it's
That's
so.
what I believe.
He said this is how he said like it was like the most cleverest thing in the world. Hello? Yeah. You know what they will be eating? What? Crow. Then hung up. He said, hung up. I love it though. I love it.
By the way, the contingent at Miami's Pro Day, according to Paul Gaharski, Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi, Reggie McKenzie, Dave Ziegler, Brian Callahan, Nick Holtz, and more. That's an expensive dinner.
So did we not expect all those guys to be there?
No, I expected
Yeah, if you're
that to
gonna
be
draft-
the.
if you're
the
But is that
contingent.
official? Is that
Yeah,
an
is that
official
official?
thing? When you have the first pick, you're allowed to do that. I don't know what the protocols are.
Yeah, you can have
Was
dinner.
that completely on your own?
Nah,
Let's get you a good meal before you throw tomorrow.
nah, that was a part of the, I'm sure you know, Willie. That was a part of your 30 player visit. So he had his allotment.
Dustin,
time.
Dustin from Hopkinsville says, as a Titans fan, yes, sir, as much crow as possible, because I know it's coming, rooting for this franchise.
Why do you I don't understand this. Like, help me, please, people. Help me understand.
Why are you being so defeatist?
Exactly. Why are you so just like negative toward your franchise?
Well, to be fair, the Titans haven't given
No,
them
no,
much
I
to
get-
be
I
happy
get-
about lately.
they haven't given them much to be happy about. I get that. But wanting to see your franchise fail, like that's beyond, that's just beyond anything that I'm sort of like think about when I'm thinking about a fan base. Yes, you can be upset. Yes, you can be frustrated. I get all that. But to wish ill on, like, I wish they draft them and they go bad and they do bad. Like, huh? Who does that? Like, I don't Willie, help me. I don't know. I can't understand that part. That's the part but I do understand the Titan fans, and this is where the Titans have gotten themselves into, and they got themselves in trouble. I do expect the Titan fans to be upset. I do expect them to want better. I do expect them to be frustrated and to look at, this season and the expectations based upon, like you used to mention all the time last year, Willie, don't upsell this because that's not where you are at. When you upsell, this is what you get. But I don't
That's when
understand
you start losing
exactly.
people.
I don't understand the wanting your team to do bad. That's the part I don't understand.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Willie.
No, I don't really have much to add. I've been saying that. I do think communicating clearly with your objectives and saying we're a ways away is okay if that's what you feel.
Mhm.
I do think they created a for whether they tried to or not, they created a perception that they could be that they could maybe win the division, which I thought was wrong to do. They could have couched it better, even if they didn't go as far as to say this is a rebuilding project, because I think whether they wanted to label it or not, that's really what it was. But they didn't really tell anybody that, and people were really disappointed when they didn't win more games.
615-737-1025. Coming up next, could an old friend return to the NFL next season? We discuss that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063 The Game. D Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025 1063 the game. Before we get to our next topic, a couple of Titans fans have texted in on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com answering Derek's question. Glenn says, I don't think we want the Titans to do bad. We just don't have any faith that they will do anything right. Matthew in Nashville says it's a combination of things, Derek. Bad drafting, the lack of transparency from ownership about what the franchise's goals are, the fact that the owner lives in Houston, and that she goes into witness protection whenever bad things happen to her football team.
See, and I don't, that is 100% acceptable and a reason why you are skeptical of your franchise, or you are just frustrated with your franchise because of some of those things that were just pointed out. The owner seems to go MIA when things are not going right. Doesn't spend as I don't know her schedule, so but I'm just reiterating what some of the fans are saying. She's in Houston and not here. The things they have done, in regards to the franchise and how they've drafted and how they haven't developed the quarterback. These are all the things that the fan base is thinking. So, okay, I get why you are upset or you are frustrated with the franchise, but and not every fan feel this way. There are fans that we have that call in that are very optimistic about the Titans and just want them to do better. I'm on the side of just wanting them to do better. I don't wish that they draft Cam Ward and then end up fumbling the whole process, and he doesn't turn out to be the quarterback that you thought he would be. Hence, the franchise is not doing well. I don't hope for them. I hope that if they do draft Cam Ward, that it works out perfectly for them.
Tim is on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Tim, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys, I enjoy the show. Listen, Derek, I think a lot of the fans may be the way you're saying, but I think the majority of us are, if you step back and you look at the stupid decisions they've made over the last even 10 years, look at getting rid of Brown, doing some of the stuff they've done. What have they done to make us be excited about this team?
Hey, I can't push back on that. You're exactly right. And,
thanks for the call, Tim.
Thank you for the call, Tim. And listen, this is why you are in the position that you are in when we talk about the fan base starting to voice their opinions on, whether if you are a franchise that seemed to be doing things the right way and things still wasn't working out the way you wanted it to. I think the fan base would be with you if you said Cam Ward is our guy moving forward. I think the fan base would stick with you. Why? Because, you haven't shown that you would do things in a way that would make your franchise, a bad franchise. It just hadn't worked out for you. But when callers call in and they mention the A.J. Brown, or they may mention, drafting Caleb Farley while he was already injured, or some other bad moves that this franchise has made over the last decade, this is where you sit. They don't trust, even if Cam Ward is the guy and he ends up ultimately being great, they don't trust you. They don't trust that you draft this guy and he's going to be a good player.
Willie, I do think that this was, based on what Derek is saying, I do think that this is a bad year for the Titans to have the number 1 overall pick. And that's just how it works out, right? There's nothing they could have done about that.
Win more games. No,
well, that is
outside
true.
of that.
That is true. But imagine if the Titans were in this position 1 year ago and there was Caleb Williams and there was Drake May and there was Jaden Daniels, and it felt like the Titans couldn't screw this up, right? Because those 3 quarterbacks were so highly regarded, versus this season where there still are questions about Cam Ward. So look, it's the luck of the draw or lack thereof. But I feel like the Titans being having the number 1 pick in this draft is not going to help them with that perception that, hey, They're gonna take a shot on Cam Ward, although nobody thinks he's as good of worthy of being the number 1 pick.
Yeah, and only time is going to tell. In 5 years, that's when that pick. Nobody will care whether nobody thought the guy would be a great first pick or not if he ends up being good.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that right now they're not hot with the decisions they've made, and they have made a lot of knee-jerk decisions, and it hasn't worked out, and so it erodes the faith. But there's nothing Mike Borgonzi can do about that. He can just make the right decision going forward, and the fans are going to be how they're going to be. Like Barry Trotz, his stock has dropped, right? Because he was red hot when he started, and now he hasn't been hot with the latest moves. That's part of being in a position where you have to make tough decisions. And so the fans are going to ride the wave. If it's going well, they're going to believe in everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go on a cold streak, they're going to start to be skeptical. It's just natural.
Adam from Portland is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Well, let me ask you this, Adam, because I keep hearing the same narrative, and I think Jared may have been the one to start it. I'm not sure. But this whole concept of they should have been honest with the fans, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I think it's so dumb. What are they supposed to go? Hey, we keep seeing Levis do stupid stuff in practice. Don't buy tickets. Don't show up. No, of course you're going to be like, hey, we spent more money than anybody. He's got a rocket. Y'all know he does. Like, you couldn't have – like, we were in both those first games. What if you win those first two? You never know how the season's going to transpire after that. But, like, this thought of they lied to the fans, that's stupid. Like, they're 53 professional athletes. Maybe they thought they were going to be pretty good, dude. I just think it's a weak cop-out, for a season that didn't go right.
Like, hey, Adam, quickly, stay on the line. Okay, I'm going to ask you this because I believe this is why, the Predators and Barry Trotz has gained so much favor because he's been up front. And when we say honest, it's just giving the fan base a level of expectation that you have for your team. Barry Trotz from day one listen, this is what we want to do, but it's going to take some time. He said that from day, and I think that's why people were so endearing to him. Even while they're going through this sort of, bad season, people are still holding out hope and they're trusting Barry Trotz. Why? Because he was on a level playing. He was on a level ground. He leveled with them. He told them.
I think there is a difference between being transparent and lying.
Exactly. And Barry is transparent. The Titans and Willie said it all last season, they should have been transparent. They upsold this team knowing good and well this team had no depth, which I had been screaming for the last year and a half. They knew it.
I think that I do agree with the depth part, but I think it's perception. Who knows? We can't read Rand's mind. We don't know if he was lying. Like I fully believe Rand thought he had a team that was going to compete. He got to spend the money, man. I feel like Latham was a great player at that spot.
I don't think they were lying. Lying to me was never in my thought process. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't. They missed a chance, a free chance because when you have a new coach and you move on from the Vrabel era and you're moving on from the quarterback that's been the quarterback for 5 years or however long,
you got an opportunity to reset the expectation.
Yes, you can lower the bar, and it's smart to keep the bar low when it's a little bit of an unknown. But I think there was a little bit, hey, we spent all this money. Hey, we might have a chance. And there's a way to say that without having the perception and you try to control the message as best you can. But I think the fans were really disappointed. They thought the team was going to be a lot better than it was. And I see Adam's point. Mm-hmm. If they win a couple of those games early and there's a little belief and maybe Levis gets a little more confident, maybe they could have been more, quote, competitive or respectable. But they are where they are because those things didn't happen. Trey did what he did.
Trey is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trey, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Good.
Doing good.
Hey, I want to know why they're not the analysts, the national analyst isn't talking about Shedeur Sanders anymore. And what's the difference in between Shedeur Sanders' game and Cam Ward game, and because I was just wanting to know why nobody's talking about him anymore. Y'all have a good day. Thank you for taking my call.
Thanks, Trey.
I'm gonna tell you what Louis Riddick said this morning. This question was asked to Louis Riddick by Stephen A. It was like, yeah, you're telling us all this great stuff, but you said that same stuff about Shedeur Sanders. So what separates them? And he said the horsepower. The horsepower in his arm. That is what separates him from Shedeur Sanders. Because you're right. If you look at their game, they both do things exceptionally well. I think Shedeur Sanders would be probably more NFL ready based upon, the coaching staff that was at Colorado. And I think he's been groomed for this moment. So I think he would be sort of more NFL ready. But make no mistake, Cam Ward has the higher upside. That may not mean anything ultimately at the end of the day, but that's what usually separates these quarterbacks. One who has that horsepower in their arm and who has the higher ceiling. Hence, Anthony Richardson gets drafted where he got drafted. Plain and simple.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on all of this. Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, will join us coming up next. We will discuss Cam Ward, whose pro day, Miami's pro day, is this afternoon. We will discuss that and more with TD. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, by Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter. Teron, as we know, today is Cam Ward in Miami's pro day. Starts here in a couple of hours. This is a serious question. I know it's going to sound like I'm being like antagonistic, but I am legitimately curious. What will the Titans learn about Cam Ward at his pro day that they didn't already know?
Yeah, it's not as much learning something new as it is confirmation of some of the things that you saw. When you see a guy throw the football or do whatever he's doing that you're evaluating, when you see him do that live and in person, you get a better feel for it. So that's really all it is. They'll obviously talk with some different people there at the facility or parts of the program and get some other background. But for the most part, this isn't an exercise to gather new information as much as just to confirm what you already have.
So what does Cam Ward need to show in his pro day today to confirm what the Titans may already know about him?
Yeah, I mean, look, he needs to throw the football well. I think that's really the bottom line. But even if he doesn't do it, it's not like this is the end-all, be-all, and they'll suddenly jump off the Cam Ward wagon if he doesn't throw well. Again, it's a part of the process. He just needs to show that, you know, he could put on a show, and I think that's what he's going to do.
Now, Teron, we understand, you know, what they're thinking in regards to the first round, the first pick in the first round, or at least we assume to know what they are thinking in this process. But outside of a Cam Ward, and outside of that number one pick, based upon what they've done in free agency, what are some other areas that you think is going to be critical for them to address? Because it seems like they've addressed the offensive line, at least the starting five. But what other areas do you think they need to address right after the quarterback position?
Yeah, I think pass rush and receiver are the top two ones that they got to address. And I mean, it's a tough situation for them because typically pass rushers, you get those guys early in the draft. Receivers, you kind of can pluck guys throughout the draft, and there's some good ones that you could get later and things like that. But I mean, you know, you look at that 35th pick. If Luther Burden is there, and then you know a guy like Donovan Ezeraku is there, then you know you got a lot to consider one versus the other. So it's going to be interesting watching what happens there. But I mean, the bottom line, they need more swings at the plate, and they don't necessarily have that in the top 100.
Now, we heard, you know, the potential of a guy like Abdul Carter going number one overall. Now, it's cooled down, it seemed, a lot based upon the information they got about his foot. What else are you hearing? Because it's not 100% that the Titans will take Cam Ward at number one or stay at number one for that matter. But if, say, they move out of it and that Abdul Carter is still there, what are you hearing about him? Because it seems like things have cooled off tremendously for him.
Yeah, well, everything started to point towards the Cam Ward being the pick at number one. And I mean, there's still interest in Abdul Carter. They had him in the building. I don't know, you know, anything about the medicals or anything like that. I think the main thing is trying to figure out when the injury happened. Like, did he play the year with it, or did that happen in training? And that's something that eventually is going to come out. But that's the main thing. And that answer right there will have a lot to do with where he goes. So we'll see what happens. But the trade down is still something that I know they're entertaining, and they're just kind of seeing what may come. But to be able to just fall back and pick Cam Ward, you know, the best quarterback in the draft class as your option isn't a bad one either.
Teron, I'm also really curious about the process of the pro day. I'm sure you've been to some pro days before. So when you say confirmation, I'm looking for maybe an example of or two of what you might be looking for, or maybe when you talk to coaches of specific things that they're looking for to confirm, right? Because it just seems crazy. Like, you're not throwing against the defense. You're not reading defenses. You're just kind of showing off what you got, I guess. You want to look sharp. But like you said, if you if you just happen to have a bad day, it probably shouldn't change your whole evaluation a whole lot in the big picture. So what are specifics that you want to see?
Yeah, well, I think the arm strength thing is something that you look for, right? You want to see him make throws from the right hash to the opposite sideline, like those deep out breaking routes and things like that. You want to make sure that he has zip on the deep in breaking routes. You always end it on that, they boot out to one side, the receiver starts at the side that they boot away from, and he runs a deep route, and the receiver just keep going and going and going, and the quarterback boots out and he launches a bomb and they complete it, and then everybody celebrates. I think really it's just a matter of just seeing in person. I think that's a big part of it. And like I said, you're looking for certain things like driving the ball outside the numbers from the opposite hash, driving the ball with velocity and touch at the same time to the deep in break, and being able to throw that skinny post well, being able to throw the go routes route, like making it a 50-yard handoff. And that's what Cam Ward and all these quarterbacks are going to look to do.
When you look back, can you recall an example of where somebody's stock did change a lot, or at least the perception changed for better or worse after a pro day?
Yeah, I think Stillman did a great job bringing up the Teddy Bridgewater one where he threw it out the gloves. He had a terrible day and he kind of dropped a bit, and he ended up going, in the first round still, but like I think it was pick 32. You got that. I remember Johnny Manziel did his with shoulder pads on, and he created some buzz there. Sam Bradford had a really good workout en route to becoming the number one pick when he was back in, I want to say 05 or 03, something like that. But nevertheless, it was a good workout, and a lot have said that it was the best one that they've ever seen. So guys, look at Anthony Richardson last year. He had or a couple years ago, he had a really good one, and that helped him as well.
We had a caller ask the question, and I think it's a fair question. It seems like there's so much chatter about Ward right now. He said, "Why has everybody stopped talking about Shedeur Sanders?" I'm not sure when his pro day is, but do you think his camp will gain momentum between now and the draft, before it's all over?
Well, I think right now it's a race to be the second or third pick. I think that's really what it boils down to. It's been established that Cam Ward is the top quarterback in many eyes. I'm not sure exactly why Shedeur and everything has slowed down for him, because he hasn't played football, so I don't understand how he would drop as a prospect. But he remains one of the most critiqued prospects in this class.
I got one more for you, then I'll toss it back to the guys here. Adam and D Mace had a good discussion, and I was a part of it, but I was more of a listener on this one because of the dynamic. I watched Luther Burden play in Missouri, right? They've been an interesting team in the SEC. Vanderbilt played an incredible game against them. It went to double overtime. It was an exciting game. But I read a piece that was really interesting because it followed up on what Adam and Derek were talking about. His lack of production from 2 years ago to last year has gotten everybody sort of wondering if his stock is going to drop way down in the first round, et cetera. But I'm curious what you see when you evaluate him. Do you think there's a different evaluation, or is it simply the production that has everybody sort of wondering how that stock has dropped? And do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think the production is the main thing. If you go back and look, he has a lot of, big plays that got called back, and just that offense overall wasn't in sync, and they weren't going. But you still had some, big plays that he made. Like, he still showed the playmaking ability, and I think that's the main thing. So I don't necessarily ding him for it. I think some of these meetings, where he hasn't really been able to, fully explain what's going on, I think that has kind of hurt him a bit. But It's a part of him just, in essence, like taking one for the team. He didn't want to throw anybody under the bus. But I feel as though his prospects should be the same. I'm not sure exactly, what all is entailed with some of the stuff that's making him drop into possible second round. But, I mean, if he's there at the top, you got to take him at the top of the second round.
Teron Davenport joining us on D-Mace, Fengen, and Donick. Teron, the Titans have signed kicker Joey Sly. They go back to the Patriots for another kicker. Joey Sly, 26 of 33 on field goals last season, 25 of 26 on extra points, 6 of 9 on kicks from 50-plus yards in 2024. Why this decision as opposed to keeping Nick Folk? Is it a matter of age, or was there something else that played into this decision?
Yeah, I think they went younger and cheaper. And then not to mention, the guy has a couple of 60-plus yard field goals on his resume as well. So they just went younger. They went a little bit stronger as far as the legs concerned. But the accuracy, I mean, you can't forget Nick Folk's been the most accurate kicker in the last 2 years. So that is something that he has to speak on. And, I mean, look, he made 3 against the Colts from 50-plus, and he became the oldest guy to do that. So I understand age was getting in there, but he still was giving you good quality. They just seemed to feel like Joey Sly would be a better long-term option.
Teron, last one for you. We were talking about pro day protocols because Paul Kaharski tweeted that the Titans took Cam Ward to dinner last night. And we were just curious about what those protocols are in terms of how teams can meet with these prospects ahead of their pro days. Are there certain things they can and can't do with these prospects before or after their pro days?
Yeah, there's only so much time that you could spend with them. You could take them out to dinner. You can't spend the whole day with them, but you could take them out to dinner and, have like that kind of getting to know period. Then the next day, the actual pro day, you had the option, where you could kind of ask around the facility about the said player. You get to talk to them afterward as well. And sometimes they may have the guy do a few extra things, if they want to see something that they didn't fully see in the pro day. So those are more or less the protocols. It's kind of set in stone where like you don't really have one team get much more time with said player than the other.
Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, joining us on D-Mace, Fengen, and Donick. Teron, always a pleasure. We'll talk next week.
All right, appreciate you guys. Take it easy.
Teron Davenport joining us on the program. Remember, Cam Ward's pro day starts in just a couple of hours. I did see a tweet that Cam Ward showed up early to get some extra run in with his quarterback coach. He shows up early. I would say that does a certain thing to another thing.
Hey, that right there shows us.
You can cross it off the list.
Yes, that he's dedicated. He showed up early.
He showed up early. As
first one in type guy.
You never hear about the guys who are last to show up and the first to leave. It's always the other way around. They're the first to show up and the last to leave. But for those of you out there that are making it work, being the last to show up and the first to leave, more power to you. Work smarter, not harder. That's what I always say. 615-737-1025. We'll continue the discussion on Cam Ward's pro day. We'll also discuss the potential return of an old friend to the NFL. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
Okay, time to tell you about F&M Bank. We had a great time, as we always do at the first couple of days of the NCAA tournament while the show's going on. Some of my favorite days of the year on Sports Talk Radio. And thanks to our friends at F&M Bank, we have Take It to the Bank on Fridays, which we extended to Thursday and Friday. I had some mixed results, I should say. We'll have to count it up with the commissioner here coming up in a couple of days, but that's Friday at 1:45 every week on the show. We have a blast doing that. And F&M Bank has a simple motto: banking made easy on purpose. A little change can go a long way, especially when you're trying to save money. So that's one of the tools. If you haven't checked out F&M Bank's Smart Swipe Roundup feature, it's time to do it. Their debit card can round up, and that's the Smart Swipe. It's a great tool that deposits change into your savings account every time you make a debit card purchase. So if you make a purchase and it comes out to be $6.28, they'll round it up to $7. And no matter how much that purchase is, it just rounds up to the nearest dollar. So every time you use that Smart Swipe debit card, you're going to be saving money. So it's a great tool. Saving money can be hard sometimes, but F&M Bank makes it easier. So stop by one of their branches and visit them online at myfmbank.com. They got 20 locations in our listening area. Tell them you heard about it from me here on 102.5 The Game, because all of us know a little change can make all the difference. It's F&M Bank, member FDIC.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. And of course, D-Mace Vinganadonic is proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Daryl is in Hendersonville on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Daryl, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, guys. The reason that I think the Titans don't have any credibility with the fans, and that's what they this is about, is credibility and trust, is for me is because Chadwick AI Chadwick went on the air a year and a half ago and was talking about all these competitive advantages that the Titans were going to have because of his brilliance, and they were going to use AI. And of course, Stillman made fun of them because we're going to cure cancer and all that. But to the point, that infers that we're a little bit smarter than everybody else because we will be able to predict who's going to have injuries, who has injuries that may hang around longer than we think they're going to. And that turned out to be absolutely not true because I don't think AI can predict those kinds of things. So while those tools are nice, and if they're effective, that's great. But to me, he lost all credibility by even bringing those things up in the interview, because I'm sure it helped him sell his presence to Amy when he did his interviewing. But again, I don't think they have any credibility because of the supposed advantage they have. And what really cost them credibility is that she chose to keep him. As far as I'm concerned, when Rand went, he should have gone too. I really don't hold Callahan accountable for this. It's his first year. There's none of these were probably his players or people he had much input on. They blew it in the draft. They blew it in free agency. And until they start getting some good free agents that pan out over several years in draft choices, they're not going to be able to get that credibility back.
Thanks for the call, Daryl. And what's interesting about that, and look, we talked about Chad Brinker, a.k.a. the supreme ruler of football.
Yes.
He oversees all. Having him around, I think Daryl made his points quite well. So I'm just going to refer back to what Daryl said. Having him around, in a way, there's maybe it's like through osmosis or whatever. It feels like it's kind of seeping onto Mike Borgonzi, right? When you make a new GM hire, there's excitement, right? Mike Borgonzi was part of a successful organization with the Kansas City Chiefs. He had a part in building that team up to what we know it is today. But then again, a couple of years ago, the Titans also hired a general manager from a successful organization, and that backfired. But I feel like Mike Borgonzi, this is an opportunity for him to put his stamp on the team. And he has a huge opportunity here with the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. But I feel like, and tell me if I'm wrong here, gentlemen, I feel like the presence of Chad Brinker, because he is a link to the past. He was part of Rand Carthon's regime. He was hired by Rand Carthon. We've talked about how strange it is that the guy that was hired by the GM overtook the GM, and now that GM is gone. But I feel like Brinker, being that link to the past that Titans fans don't want to remember, I feel like it's almost rubbing off a little bit on Mike Borgonzi.
I mean, the best thing Brinker can do is what he has been doing. Don't say anything. Just be the supreme ruler of football from a distance and let the guy that you hired, the GM Borgonzi that you hired from a winning organization, let him do his job. And it seems like that's what they're doing. Now, I don't know if the Chadwick Brinker sort of juices are dripping on Borgonzi or not.
I don't really like that imagery.
Yeah, me either. It's like, I don't like that.
Can we work on that?
Yeah, we need to work on that one.
This isn't live, is
the
it?
smell, the Chadwick Brinker smell.
The stench.
You want to call it a stench? He may just call it the fragrance.
Let's call it
fragrance.
The fragrance, sure.
Of Brinker may be, sort of seeping into Borgonzi. I don't think that's the case.
Right, but like I'm sure there are Titans fans who see that Chad Brinker hired Mike Borgonzi.
Yes.
Therefore, like, can we trust Borgonzi? Brinker's the one who hired him. Why can we trust him?
But he has stayed out of the way. He has been mute, so to speak. He hasn't said anything. Everything and every time we talk about the Titans, at least the last month, maybe a little bit longer than that, we've been talking about Brinkert and Callahan. And are they going to draft Cam Ward number 1? We haven't said anything about Brinkert. And that's a good thing. You hired these guys, let these guys do their job. When they're not doing their job to a satisfactory level, then obviously there are decisions that need to be made, because those decisions were made in previous years. So if the fan base is looking at it and saying, well, Brinkert is still there, so we don't trust the Tennessee Titans, what I would say to you is this. It seems like what Borgonzi wanted to do, they are doing. How he wanted to address this team, they are addressing it in that way. Meaning, they are going to get guys that they believe that can play and will last the whole season, rather than going to get guys that have been injured the previous season and then you bring them here with the Titans. So whether you bring on the AI model or analytics, because that's all this. It's the NFL and every other sporting arena has gone to analytics.
It's been Moneyball.
Yeah, it's that's just the way it is. Some people do it more than the others, but make no mistake, the Tennessee Titans are not doing no more, no less than what some other teams are out there doing in regards to analytics and how they allow that to sort of skew whether they're going to draft a guy or not based upon the analytic numbers and how he will perform moving forward.
I think they've made a shift since John Robinson famously was not big into the analytics. They had a lot less resources. It's amazing these days how much money organizations spend on analytics, the staff they have. And I still think the Titans are probably behind a lot of teams in that department. Baseball is unbelievable how much money and effort they put in, and manpower they put into that department. I'll say this about the lack of trust as I listen to some of the fans. It's easy to just basically put it in one easy box and say they're losing, people lose faith. But I think you can go back through a lot of examples, the knee-jerk firing of John Robinson, the quarrels between Vrabel and Amy Adams Strunk over Rand Carthon, the whole Carthon in and out, the whole Chad Brinker thing that you just went down that road, Derek. And you can say, hey, do they have, who's the captain of the ship? Who's running the ship? You're right. And I think that's what we have to hope for, is that Mike Borgonzi, it becomes the captain of the ship, regardless of who's got the title and what they say about how it works, or how fancy Chad Brinker talks, or how fancy he sold this. Because it's easy to sit there and say, well, he sounds smart. Then you go to their website. They have a lot of people on the staff where it says front office that have a title, and there's no bio. There's still no bio. I don't know. How do you know anything about the person? Like a fan who's trying to say, hey, let me think about buying season tickets. I heard they don't have it together. Let's go to the website and read about some of these people. There's nothing to read. They don't have bios on a lot of these guys. So that's another thing that creates a perception of, are they organized? Who's listening to who? Who's the captain of the ship? So until that perception changes, or until they start winning, that perception is going to sit there.
An interesting report over the weekend from Jordan Schultz. The Vikings have had discussions with former Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill about a potential deal. Talks are ongoing and nothing is imminent as of now, sources tell Jordan Schultz. So with the quarterback carousel it feels like it's starting to grind to a halt. It's that portion. It's at the portion of the carousel ride where it's starting to slow down, but it's not slow enough that it's safe to get off. You just have to, hold on to your horse or your cheetah or your goose or whatever is on the carousel these days. I'm thinking of the one at the zoo, which is the one that my son likes to ride. There are a lot of animals on that one. So it's grinding to a halt, but it's still not quite slow enough to get off. Jameis Winston signs with the New York Giants late last week. Aaron Rodgers still looking for a new home. Russell Wilson still looking for a new home. But interesting that the Vikings reach out to Ryan Tannehill, who did not play in the NFL last season, as we all know. And I do find this interesting, Derek. There are a lot of Titans fans who have texted in and some who have called over the past number of months, and have said, why can't the Titans call up Ryan Tannehill? He's available. And I know that Joe Flacco had a great, 4 or 5 game run coming off of the couch with the Cleveland Browns a couple of seasons ago, which I think, if I recall correctly, earned him Comeback Player of the Year honors. But I can't imagine. I mean, when you think of some of the other options out there, where does a Ryan Tannehill, who did not play in the NFL last season, rank among the most desirable options?
I mean, listen, it may not even be Ryan. It may not be the Tennessee Titans. It may be Ryan said, I don't want to go back to the Tennessee Titans. I don't know. No one knows how it truly ended with the Titans. I'm sure he wasn't, pleased with, how they, ushered in Will Levis and how they didn't protect him, meaning Ryan Tannehill with an offensive line. So these are or didn't get him true play. These are things that maybe Ryan Tannehill looked at and said, you know what? I wouldn't go back to that franchise. I was there long enough and I saw too much. I don't want to go back there. So it could be Ryan Tannehill that doesn't want to answer the phone when the Tennessee Titans call. But then again, I look at it as you saw him at his best. You saw him at his worst. Do you believe that he can elevate the roster that you have on hand right now? And the answer is probably no, we don't think so. So if that's indeed the case, why do you want to go down that road again? And plus, you're going to have to, I would tend to believe you're going to have to pay him a little bit more.
To be clear, I just want to make sure that I said this correctly. I wasn't advocating for the Titans, but just the idea of a team reaching out to Ryan Tannehill after he did not play last year.
I think Ryan Tannehill still, and probably it was good that no one reached out. It gave him a year to sort of decompress and really get healthy, because that was a lingering injury. That whole high ankle sprain thing, that was a lingering injury. There's 2 years in a row where he was getting just beat up. His body probably needed some rest, and his brain, his mind probably needed some relaxation away from the rigors of football. So sitting out last year, it may have been his decision to do it. I'm not saying no one called him. We don't exactly know whether somebody actually called him or not. But I think because he was off a year, because you still believe he can quarterback a team. Now, how successful you will be with that team depends on how your roster looks. And maybe teams that believe their roster is better and a guy like Ryan Tannehill can come in with the experience and win some games for you and help, sort of push your, to help push sort of what your beliefs onto this team, which way you want this team to go. A veteran quarterback that has no problem with helping you lead this team in the direction you want to go.
Yeah, I've seen examples of guys who do step away, let their body heal. I think the key is, did he stay in it physically? Did he maybe have a vision of and a drive to say, in a year, I'm coming back? Because the odds are against you, right? When you step away, even though, your body heals, but the sharpness, the time away from the game, were you training And how much more do you have to train to get back into playing shape? These are all the variables. But look, it just goes back to the same thing. There are not enough good quarterbacks out there. Steve DeBerg was 100 years old playing for the Falcons when they made it to the Super Bowl. Remember that, D-Mace?
Yes.
I mean, Steve DeBerg played forever. I mean, I don't think he's ever stepped away, but Ryan Tannehill is still young enough that he would be younger. I mean, Tom Brady is a great example. So you can play when you're that old. I just wonder what's he been doing for the last year, and that's what teams want to find out. Because if you go by his credentials, he would be very qualified to be a capable backup in the league if he's still got the drive, the real want to keep playing, right? That's most of it. Like some guys come out of retirement because they just feel like they missed being around it, and they'll do anything to get back in. Other guys, once they switch off the switch and they move on with life, it's really hard to switch that switch back on.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on Ryan Tannehill reportedly getting interest from the Minnesota Vikings. 615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
Da-da-da.
All right, let's give you the word from Lee Company, proud sponsor of our Nashville Predators coverage. Nashville splits a pair over the weekend, a great win, one of their best performances in a good while against the Maple Leafs. Fun night on a Saturday night in Smashville, followed by yesterday's loss to the Blues, a pretty good battle. They fall short. They'll play the Blues again, by the way, on Thursday in the next home game. I'm in Raleigh right now. Predators Hurricanes tomorrow night, and it'll be brought to you on our radio coverage by Lee Company. Proud sponsor of the Predators, in business since 1944. Right now, they continue to work with their members of the home maintenance plan. It's the best way to go. That year-round relationship that keeps your house in order, and you stay ahead of the curve, finding the small problems and knowing and planning for when repairs need to be made, and then you get discounts on those repairs. You pay a monthly fee for that, but Lee Company is great to work with. They've got outstanding customer service, and I've experienced that firsthand in our house. So here's what you do. Call 615-567-1000. Whether you're in a pinch right now or you want to look into that home maintenance plan and be proactive. 615-567-1000, or go to leecompany.com and make an online appointment. Lee Company, in business since 1944.
Like, I feel like he is the #1 pick in every single mock that I see. He can't improve from that. So what are you watching for today?
Well, I'm waiting to see all the things that I saw twice this year live out of Cam, which is starting first and foremost, just tremendous leadership, tremendous poise, tremendous control. He's a guy who really took the bull by the horns as far as this program is concerned. You want to talk about leveling up a program, his commitment to the game and then his play on the football field leveled up the entire program, and there's no mistake about that. And I expect to see the same thing as far as him taking control of this workout, as far as it being efficient and precise. I think all the physical traits will be on display as far as his arm strength, the lightning quick release, the ability to layer the football at the second and third level, the ability to drive the football when he needs to, with velocity. His ability to get outside the pocket, throw the football rolling right, throw it rolling left. He showed all that during the regular season. And I rarely expect the ball to hit the ground, if at all. But I think the most important thing, and I got this sense when I saw Jaden Daniels last year, was how people respond to him. The leadership is what separates this kid. It just does. And I think those are the kind of things that you can assess at workouts like this and really can help you kind of separate people when you just see how everyone else reacts to them. And make no mistake, the coaching staff told me this in the 2 times I talked to him this year. People respond to Cam Ward. They just do. And that's why I believe he is an absolute lock. He better be a lock to go #1 overall.
That was Louis Riddick, who is live on site in Miami for Cam Ward's Pro Day, which is coming up here in a couple of hours. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you.
He better be a lock.
He better be a lock.
I was like, whoa.
Or what? Or like, what happens if he's not?
Or else.
Louis Riddick is coming for you.
Or else. Or else what? Who knows?
I'm coming for you.
He better be. What do you mean? Well,
Man,
it's a free country, right? You can pick
Man.
whoever you want. You can pick Derek Mason.
Yeah,
first
if you draft me #1 if you want to.
Yeah.
I enter the draft. You ain't getting much out of me, but hey.
You've already gone through that experience.
Yeah, man, I would love to go through it again.
Yeah.
Shoot.
We can find a way to make that happen.
Exactly.
There's got to be some sort of draft we can put you in.
Yeah.
It's just
the old guy
drafts.
drafts.
Louis Riddick is great. I think Louis Riddick is really good of what he does. I just get wary of the conviction that you hear. Right, you hear that glowing report right there, and you think this is the greatest quarterback that's ever come down the pike in the last 5 or 10 years.
But you
it's
know
never
what we
that
could,
But if
simple.
you're gonna draft a guy, wouldn't you want to think that?
Like, didn't you say you pulled one out of mothballs recently, Adam, that Mina Kimes said about Malik Willis, right? Hey, Malik Willis, he's gonna be awesome.
She turned to the camera. She looked straight into the camera. This was on NFL Live a couple of years ago. She turned right. I found the clip, by the way. I went back and watched it after I said it. She looked right at the camera because she is a noted Seattle Seahawks fan. So she looked right at the camera to John Schneider, the GM of the Seahawks, and said, "John, I am begging you, please draft Malik Willis." Now think about that now. But to Willie's point, you could take that clip from Louis Riddick and you could wipe out all of the references to Cam Ward. Just leave all of the things that he said about Cam Ward. He's a leader and this thing and that thing. You could just eliminate the name of the quarterback. And I can find you a clip from 3 years ago where someone
Bryce
says that.
Young.
Oh, of course.
Or somebody says that about Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
or
Matt Leinart. It was unbelievable.
Yes,
Hey, he's
Matt
got
Leinart,
it,
yeah.
man. Matt Leinart. Oh man, you just know it when you're around him. He's got a presence. Everybody responds to him. Oh my gosh, what a great leader. I mean, every year you get that.
There's a
And so
thesaurus
I
out
take
there.
it with a grain of salt.
Yes, I understand. There is a thesaurus out there for things that you can say about quarterback prospects. And it's the same things. Like I think that, and I agree with you. I think Louis Riddick is a great analyst, Willie. But you hear those things about great prospects all of the time. And like the question I have for you, Derek, is one thing he hammered in that clip was the leadership. Now, I've never been to a pro day. I'm going to watch Cam Ward's pro day. Derek is going to watch Cam Ward's pro day. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. But like, how does the leadership manifest itself?
Is it on TV?
It is on TV.
Yeah, I think
it
NFL
is on TV.
Network or
Yeah.
ESPN or like
NFL
all
Network,
of the
I
above?
believe.
Or ACC Network.
Every channel
Every
on your
network.
dial.
Well, I'm gonna try to find it.
All of
Best
the
believe.
networks that you have discovered during March Madness, like nobody watches True TV.
It'd be like the presidential debate. It's on all the channels, right?
No.
You can't get You can't get away from it.
No.
We have to see Cam Ward all across America, every channel.
You never watch True TV except for the first 2 rounds of the NCAA
Right.
tournament. That's the only time you don't need True TV again until this time next year.
Yes.
Hey, there's some good shows on True TV. Stop it. Hey, but listen.
I love Impractical Jokers.
But my point is, like, how
my
does the-
son is all over Impractical Jokers. He's watched every episode. I'm like, this isn't that good. It's not that good. He's like, I love it. Great.
My point though is, how does the leadership manifest itself on the field when to me, this is a scripted practice, right? Basically, that this is what this is. So how does the leadership manifest itself during a practice?
I think
That's
what
I want to know.
I think what happens is there's a sense of, this is my workout. I don't need, I'm controlling the tempo of this workout. And if it's a high tempo, I'm telling you what to do. Let's do this. Come on, let's go. No, get back up. I want to get another throw. Stuff like that shows your personality in a sense. But beyond that, I don't think there's much you can show in regards to leadership outside of you going to campus and now you're talking to people face to face that are in that building. How is Cam as a leader? How was his demeanor in a win as compared to a loss? Was he taking responsibility throughout the building? The little things. Prime example of little things. Ed Reed would say to us, like the locker room, period. Hey, listen, that garbage can is sitting right next to your locker. Those people that come in here, they don't get paid to clean up after you like that. If you cut your tape off, walk it over to the trash can and throw it away. That's not their job, especially when the trash can. Be an adult, be responsible. That's leadership. Or don't leave your plate on the lunch table. That ain't their job. You clean up after yours. Those are little things. That shows leadership. Those are the things that GMs can walk in and coaches can walk in and talk to everybody in that building and say, well, how is he? How is he in the lunchroom? How is he in the weight room? How is he when he walk in this building and when he leave, when you see him around campus? How is he? That's where that leadership part starts to come in. How is he with his teammates? That's what you can find out once you're on campus, not necessarily during the workout itself.
By the way, Jared from Spring Hill cutting right to the core for me personally on our text line. The being a great leader comment is synonymous with you've got a great personality, but in the dating world. I've been there one too many times.
But listen, that leadership means everything at that position.
No, it's real. It's real.
Yeah,
I think you can get a real thing.
That's real.
But
Being
I
a leader
just
at
feel
that
like
position, you have to be.
There's a narrative though where it gets so glowing, like you create this.
Maybe some people
like
overdo
nobody's
it.
ever. I think they overdo it a little bit. But I'm not saying that they're not being sincere when they think he's a great leader. But I think there's most of those guys to get to that point probably are better, are pretty decent in that capacity. Maybe not the greatest ever, right? But they're probably, to have gotten as far as Cam Ward has gotten, probably had to do pretty well. Probably doesn't leave his tray, or just throw his tape on the floor. We've all seen that guy.
Exactly.
But Derek, most of those guys don't last past freshman year. They're out of there because they're not playing, right? They're not. You don't want them on your team. So quarterbacks usually do pretty well at that level in that department for the most part. But the one that always gets me is this: like, man, I can remember. I can't remember who it was, but you hear this all the time. So and so, he's got it. Hey, whatever it is, he's got it. I can't ever put my finger, but you just know when you're around him, he's got it, right?
Because you don't have to explain.
Right?
You don't have to explain what it is, Willie.
Oh yeah, he's got it, man. He's just got that.
He's got that. Well,
Great.
what is that?
Look,
that
to quote,
and then 5 years later, he had it. I don't know where it went, but he doesn't have it anymore.
To quote,
But I promise you, he had it. I used to be around him. I didn't know where it was, but he's got it. He's got it. He just doesn't have it anymore. It's gone.
To quote Abe Simpson. I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what it is seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you. That's what
that is just what the it is, right
Yes.
there.
I don't know. He has the it factor.
It's a fleeting thing.
What is
Yes.
this?
You can have it
I
one
don't know.
minute and then you don't.
And it can disappear. Nobody know where it went
Who knows what it is?
because they never knew what it was. And I'm guilty of it. I know I've been guilty of it. Man, he got that it. Well, what? It's just that. He's one of those. He's one of those guys. Like he can get it. He can get it done. Well, what is it?
Right.
It whatever it is.
Right. And I mean, yesterday, did Clayton for Florida? Did he have it?
Yes, he did.
Oh, yeah.
He had it.
He bailed their chestnuts out of the fire. They were nervous. They were tight. UConn had them on the ropes. And if UConn could have thrown it in the ocean from 3, they might have pulled the upset. But Clayton just said, "Hey guys, I got you. Give it to me." I think that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's different doing it in college, and then doing it against the best in the world at the pro level. It's different.
I wonder what the hit rate on it is. Let's call it the it rate. What do you think the it rate is for people who they've got it?
I guarantee you, there's been more failures than not.
Yes.
Yeah. By the way, I voted for the Wooden Award yesterday, Adam.
Yes.
Can you tell us
Would
who
you
you
like to
voted
know-
for?
Would you like to know who I voted for? I'll give you my top 3.
Let me just ask you one question as we wrap up the show. Willie Donick, did you pledge allegiance to the flag?
Who was your top 3?
Did you pledge allegiance to the flag?
I'm not sure. The American flag?
The Cooper
The flag with 2 G's. The Flagaga.
I voted for flag, number 1. I voted for Bruin, number 2, and I voted for Clayton, number 3.
Take that, Rex Road.
Well, you always be on
I voted
Adam's side.
for Zakai Ziegler 4. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure, and I think, and I'd have to go back and look. I'm pretty sure I voted Ziegler 4 and Chaz Lanier 5. Those
Take
are my
that,
top
Rex
5.
Road,
You
if you're
do- yeah.
listening.
Yeah.
Take that. That'll do it for us today. Cam Ward's Pro Day coming up in just a little bit, but Stillman and Company coming up next.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, wonderful Monday. Peace.